Hello, friends. Join me today for a very interesting conversation with Jesse at Godan Handpans in Austria. And Jesse is a self-taught handpan maker. I didn't study with anybody, so he has a really deep understanding of the steel, and is going to talk really in depth about his process in discovering that, and also how these parameters can be changed to affect the ultimate sound and longevity of the instrument. So I think you'll really enjoy this, and welcome to the podcast. Hey guys, welcome to the podcast. Today I have Jesse from Godan Handpans, and he made me a beautiful instrument last year. This beauty in a crazy scale. And we're just kind of talking about his creative process today and how he got into the handpan world. So thank you for being on, Jesse.
Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. So how did you first discover the handpan or the hong, or what was your first intro into these instruments?
That was one of the craziest moments in my life. And I think it's such a unique moment that I think it's lucky that you can experience this in one lifetime. Like, I guess what happened to me when I first saw the instrument, I have the feeling something strong like this will only be once in a lifetime, or not even in a lifetime. So I was lucky to really get struck by this instrument, and it was in Barcelona, and we were on a school trip to look at museums, and we went to Park Güell, and what happened there, I was also falling in love with a girl. And we were together in this park, because Park Güell is pretty artistic. It has beautiful stuff going on. It goes up, so it's steep. You can see great things around you. And I was already like really falling in love with this girl at this moment. So maybe this little door was already open, you know. And I was walking with her there, and I heard a sound, and it was just only the sound, so I didn't see anything. And I've been in music all my life already, and I was collecting instruments. Like before this podcast started, you saw the Baklama, the saz. I think I already got it before then, and I played drums since I was 14, and played percussion and flutes, and then the computer came, and then you could do all these things with computer and sound, and yeah, it's just an already big thing in my life, sound. But then I heard a sound I never heard. And I thought it was a keyboard, because with a keyboard you can make the craziest sounds, you know. And I thought I already knew all the instruments in the world, of course. But of course I didn't, and still don't. And I heard this sound and I loved it. It was a great sound. And recently on my Instagram, I posted an instrument, and the top of this instrument is the same scale, and also the same partials, like the thirds and the high notes, this classic sound.
Yep.
But I heard it, and then I walked to the sound, and there was Leonardo Trincabelli. He was playing there on a Panhard instrument in harmonic minor, and man, this guy put a spell on me. And there were many people of my classroom around me, and they saw it happening to me, which is that they didn't forget it. Like these people, it's 2006. What is that? That's 15 years ago, and people still remember that this thing that this guy was playing, that I was so, they loved it too. But they saw that I was turning into a different kind of animal.
Wow.
Or something.
That's amazing.
And also because I saw him playing the instrument, and it was with his hands. And I played percussion, and I also played percussion on acoustic guitars. So I was always tuning guitars in open tunings, but only by ear, because I didn't know anything about music theory. I just listened to strings and tuned them, and then I play them, and then you can hold your hand on the flageolets and then hit it, and play percussion on the body, and I was tuning a lot also, and also kalimbas. I played a lot of the thumb pianos, and I was always tuning them. So I was tuning things a lot already, and playing with all these instruments and objects, and all instruments I love. So I saw this guy playing, and the first thing I thought, need to have. And I didn't even think about buying his CD, and then like after a moment, I can buy his CD. So I bought his CD, and after that, life went on, life goes on. And I was with this girl, and I was falling in love with her, and that evening, like how cliche, I kissed with this girl on the beach. Like, so, but when I kissed her, this composition of Leonardo in this harmonic minor starts spinning in my head, and it was so intense. Yeah, it was so intense. And I had the CD, and I had a Discman with me.
Yes, the classic.
And I wanted to put it in the Discman and listen to it.
Yep.
But I couldn't listen to it. It was like too strong of an emotion for me to handle this. It's like, that's why I'm saying I don't think a moment like this will ever happen again in my life. Like, so strong. And that was my first meeting with the instrument.
That's an amazing way to be introduced.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Especially intertwined with a relationship too. It makes it all the more magical to have the two.
Yeah, it's
wow.
It's being human in one of the most intense ways of being human, I guess. Yeah.
And I think music and emotion are so closely tied together as well, that I feel like there's sometimes you hear a sound, or you hear a song, and it brings back an emotion you had when you last heard that sound.
Yeah.
So I'm sure it probably does the same for you now.
Especially if you compose music, and if you, like, I have records of my own music since I'm 13 years old or something, or 14.
Yep.
And then when I listen back to these songs, once per year I listen to all these songs, and you go back in time. Yeah, exactly.
I think we share kind of a similar musical background in that I spent my time when I first was learning guitar and string instruments. I just wanted to write songs. That was all I wanted to do, was just write and create. And, even if I didn't know the chord progression I was using, I was still able to do it just by listening, kind of like what you're talking.
Yeah, of course. It's just,
it works. Yeah. I think that's a different skill. People who have sort of an ear for music and can compose with their ear. And it's also good to have the other skill, but you don't have to have both to be a creator. It can come.
Yeah, I think Hans Zimmer is a very big example of this. I don't know if he learned in the end to write music like the traditional way of writing music.
Yeah.
But they call him one of the best piano roll readers in the world. It's, the piano roll is the method of putting notes in your computer.
It's interesting too that I think it's good for people to hear that, because a lot of people are stuck in the mentality of I have to learn the handpan the right way, or I have to learn the I'm even though I do teach lessons, my theory behind it is like, you need to figure it out for yourself. You can
that's the most fun part.
Yeah, that's the point of it too. So you can borrow sort of patterns and vocabulary from other people, but it's still up to you how you implement those things. That's the fun part.
Why is that with music? Like, when people ask me like, how do I make this music, or how do it with the handpan?
Yeah.
With the handpan, and then I tell them, did anyone told you how to play with your Barbies when you were young, or play with your toys?
No.
Nobody did.
Right.
And you enjoyed it. This is the same thing. That's the whole fun part of handpan. It's you put it on your lap, and especially when no one is around, because otherwise you are distracted or think like, oh, I don't want to be annoying, or and then you have this moment of you, that instrument, and you are playing. You're being human, and you're just doing something. And there is the place you will find beautiful stuff, which is the core, I think, and the beauty of making music. It's there, you know.
I think that is the part that's getting becoming a forgotten thing, is the self-discovery end of it. Because yourself, I wasn't very active in the handpan community back in the day, even though I had a really bad handpan way back. But none of even the original players like Swarup and Waples, they didn't learn from anybody. They were buskers. So they played and they felt it, and then they expressed themselves by creating on the instrument. And that's
people that walked by, they felt their explorations, or they felt their
I think there's like a pureness to that sort of mentality, where it's not like I need to learn it like a drum. I need to learn every note that's on it. It's more, I think that's the fun of this versus playing the guitar or playing the piano. It's different in that you're limited, but it's set up in a way that you can explore without it being super dissonant. It's open, so it doesn't take as much conscious thinking.
Yeah. Especially the models that are on the market now. Like if you compare it to my last model you saw on Instagram, like then it's becoming a more difficult thing to just, but also fun, Like it all depends on what you want to do with music, or on how long you are busy with discovering handpan.
Yep.
Like when you play with toys, you will get bored at one moment, and then you will have to, or find another hobby, or go more in depth of the toy.
Yeah.
Like so some people have a few Lego things, but I also know people that have a whole room full of Lego, So
I understand.
it's like I'm now here in my room full of Lego. For me, but that's what you are saying about losing that pureness and stuff. I studied music technology from 2012, from 2008 to 2012, and then you get professionalized in sound and music, and I learned something, I found something, and also lost something after that. And it's also because of me. It's also because of who I am and how I responded to it. And that's why me and my girlfriend, we moved to Austria, because originally we are from the Netherlands. And since 2 years this summer, I guess, we live in Austria in a village where the church will sound every 15 minutes. And there are just a few hundred people here, and but we found a place where there's no distraction, and where I can build my instruments. And a very important part was so me and my girlfriend could focus on music. And that's half of my life at the moment.
Amazing. I really appreciate that. That's kind of your perspective too, because I do hope that more people kind of step back from the playing part of it, and think about their own personal building and growth in the instruments as well. Because I think for me, my entire life, just discovering what could happen and what I could write on an instrument was magic. Like that's, as soon as I started taking music theory classes and all of that in college, it was like it started to take away some of the magic, because it became very analytical. But for me, the magic of every instrument is the creative process, and like, oh my God, something's forming as I'm playing this guitar or handpan or whatever. So I appreciate that perspective.
Yeah, but I'm happy I'm finding that pureness back now. And
Good.
me and my girlfriend are really trying to stay there now. And like, because after school, after the education, everything I made, I analyzed, because that's what you do when you go to school. You do your homework, you make a song or a sound, and you present it to your teacher and classmates. And then 28 people plus the teacher will say something about what you made. And in the beginning, it's really painful, because normally it's you, and you show your work, you feel very naked and transparent, and people see your emotions through your music. And then they're gonna piss on it, they're gonna say, this sucks, I think you should do this better. And because it's, when you're doing the education, it's not about what is good about it. You will hear what's bad about it and what could be better, because that's where you will learn. And after years of this education, you will get immunity for this. So that's what I like now. When I show my music, people can piss over it. I don't care anymore, because I know why I made this music, and I know what sucks about it or what's good about it.
Yeah.
And that's the positive thing of the education.
Yeah.
But it takes years, because I stopped the education in 2012, and we're 9 years further now. And I only had a few moments where I was really enjoying making compositions, because I'm more of a sound designer. That's also what I studied, sound design. I like to create sound, and especially like to make sound for something. So for documentaries, and because then I have something to hold on to stick the music onto. Because if I make music for myself, I don't know where to stick it on.
Right.
And then it can be anything, and I don't have a clear mind for that or something, I guess. Yeah, I always need something to put it on.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think, that I think is what holds people back playing wise. And it's true for everybody who gets into whatever instrument, but even the handpan world can be critical. It definitely can be a critical community. In the same way, probably, that college too. Like, if you're in classes in school, people are going to pick apart if you're throwing stuff out there. But I think, I hope that more people are able to kind of put out their own compositions and their own music without the fear of that feedback. Then not everybody wants feedback,
Yeah, exactly. Like that's the whole thing. When you go to school, you sign up for feedback. And when you post a video online on YouTube, you sign up for everyone.
That's, of course.
So for people that just hear a pen for the first time, or you builders or composers, or friends and family, your friends and family always will say it's awesome, and but yeah, this is reality, and I think people that are afraid for posting it, but they do want to grow, they just should. Yeah, if they want, it's like, I also don't post everything I make. Like, I make a lot of sound and music, and the only thing I post is handpans that I think are worth showing. Like, I don't want to show every instrument I built, and because I want to make a YouTube channel that I myself would find interesting, as a handpan enthusiast or something, and that's why I always had a lot of issues with showing my face on the YouTube videos in the beginning. Like, you only see the handpan. And because it's about the handpan, and I want to record it really well with good microphones and a good camera, and so you can hear a really realistic what do you call it? Registration of the instrument, and the demonstration of what it can do and what it is. But then I found out that if I post something like this with high quality audio, high quality video, some all right playing, it's less interesting for people than if it's recorded with a mobile phone and I'm sitting at the fire just chilling with my instrument and my girlfriend made a video. This video will perform better online than me trying to really show my real passion, because my passion is not me. I don't want to show myself. And I don't know.
It is funny how that I think the mentality that I've adopted for my YouTube channel, it's been kind of showing places, and because I just like to play outside. So anytime I go anywhere, I bring something, whatever instrument it is that day. But I think you're right. The videos that do the best are top down views with nature around, or you doing something with the handpan or rav or whatever it is with you.
Yeah, it's the theatrical thing around it is also really important, because people are watching videos online to be entertained. And I'm just a handpan obsessed person.
Same.
So for these people, the YouTube channel is quite interesting. But for people that are, they want some more, a feeling to, like the whole the view, and you bring this also in their lives, with your video. Like you make a video in a nice setting with nice music and the handpan, and people see this and it brings them a smile or a good feeling, and that's a good thing. And that's different than showing technically what an instrument is. And
right.
So in this world, I try to give it more and more now, because I understand it now.
Yeah, it is hard to find a balance between sort of the quality that you want and enough interest for people who aren't just handpan obsessed fans like many of us are. I like both aspects, but the handpan is the part I'm like, I really want to hear now. So I understand your desire to represent it as well as you can.
Yeah.
So what I remember, I found your instruments. Wait, you've been tuning for a while now. It's been on quite a long time.
I started in 2012.
Okay.
And I wanted to learn it without a teacher.
Yeah.
I even didn't have a handpan. And it's a crazy road. And I will never do it like this again if I start a project. But there were intentions to it. And because I had a lot of ideas about reality, and I was philosophizing a lot in my life, and it's really difficult to explain now where it started, what I told you in the podcast in the beginning. But there was at the end, because I was reading books, like even Arnold Schwarzenegger was a big example for me.
Mm-hmm.
Why Arnold Schwarzenegger, you think? But he said in an interview such a simple thing. He said, like, I wanted to be a world champion bodybuilder.
Mm-hmm.
So what does a world champion bodybuilder do? He trains 5 minutes more than the current bodybuilder in the world or something. So it just makes sense, such a simple, and I don't know. I think I grew up in a environment that doesn't have a lot of belief in the possibilities of themselves, like my mother or my culture, or I don't know. They all think you just go to school, then you have your diploma, then you go do your job, and so these ideas of accomplish something that you were thinking that it was not, what do you say in English?
Like not possible or not?
Like things I thought was impossible, because I fell in love with the instrument in 2006 and decided to build or start like end of 2011 or 2012, where I really thought I'm gonna do this, And it started when I was hitting everything steel I was touching, because I wanted to understand this steel tuning or whatever. I want to grasp it, and I couldn't buy one, an instrument. And like I try to keep hold of my story now again.
I think that's such an amazing thing to be so inspired by something that you seek out sort of the design of that thing. And a similar sort of thing happened to me with flutes. I hadn't owned a flute, a Native American style flute, but I heard them and I thought, like, I can make this. I can figure this out. So then I spent and that's my philosophy with everything too. And I make like harps and all sorts of weird things like ngomis, and I haven't made a kora yet, but I always go into activities with the thought that, you know, I might not do it well the first time I do it, but I think that I can do it. I just go into everything believing that it's possible for me to do it.
It
usually works. It works out in the end, you know.
It starts between your ears, you know. And that's what happened, you know, at one moment that I was convinced I'm gonna do this and I don't want to see how it's done, and I'll just start. And I started with the paint cans, empty paint cans. I started hammering them, and I built this percussion robot machine that was playing these cans.
Really?
This was my I will send you a link to a video.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it.
Because it was my graduation project, one of the two.
Yep.
And there was a 50% cut on Dutch culture money, you know, money for people that could ask for money from the government to make an art project. And when I finished my study in 2012, they would cut 50% of that.
Interesting.
So so I thought, I'm gonna make a robot that can play percussion. So you can hire one guy and a robot, but you only pay one guy. That's 50% less to pay for. And I was really interested in robotics and programming, and I was busy with these Arduino little circuit boards. I was making MIDI controllers, and so I made this machine, and I was tuning all these paint cans, and I combined them in one project, and presented it with more instruments I'd made, like the gigantic udu that my friend Jochem built for me. It's also a really funny story, this. But that's where it started. And I started tuning dishes, like little gongs, and I bought Linotune, the software. And then I really found it like really clear frequencies in the dishes, and they sound amazing, these dishes. I also have a video of this. And one day I had this wok pan, and that's where my first perfect note with the fifth octave and double octave, because it didn't have the dimple.
Yeah,
I tuned it.
Is a sunpan tuned with double octaves and not an octave and a fifth?
Yeah, that's different. That is double octaves, yeah. But this was an octave, a fifth, and because you don't use a dimple, you will have this really sharp, high extra octave.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah. That's why they put in this dome to kill the high, sharp steel pan sound.
Oh.
And that day, that was a celebration for me. Like, wow. Now I am sure I can tune steel, like steel pen note style. And then I bought tool, you know. I bought these shells from Pantheon Steel, and started shaping and doing the first steps. And then 2014, I thought for a long time it was 2015, because the video was uploaded in 2015 of my first prototype, but it was it has an engraving and it says 2014. But I gave this instrument to a drum shop, like here you can have it, and show it to people, and so I forgot about it.
That's amazing. I feel like that's a lot of people have that entryway into making these instruments, because I had a conversation last month with Sebastian at Luna Sound Sculptures, and he also went through a similar thing. He heard it, and then he thought for a couple of years, like, I want to learn how to make this, and he didn't own a handpan, and then he was like, I just want to figure it out. So I feel like
that's the fun part.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the makers that have that approach have instruments that sound very unique, or have like a different tonal quality to them. I appreciate that. I think that's kind of
yeah, me too. I think that's the fun part, because there's a lot of the same-ish instruments.
Yes.
And like Luna instruments, when I met him on Griasdi in Austria, I was really hanging out with him, and I was really like, wow, you know, he used this Japanese lacquer, and it had a soft touch. And I remember that he was not really satisfied yet. And I told him, like, no, dude, you are a handpan builder, you know. It's And then Lino, he was also there from Lino Tune. He said, you hear that? You're a handpan tune, you know, like, do you realize that? And yeah, I can really appreciate the unique sounds of people, because that's what you do, you know, when you make them yourself or try to find, you have this ideal in your head, like how you want it to sound.
Right.
And there was the same thing with me. I didn't have an instrument, so I only had a sound in my head and a quality in my head that it needed to be. So I was not satisfied until 2017 or something. Like, I think in 2017, I could really fall asleep without thinking, what do I have to do better to make the instrument sound better?
That's amazing. I always was struck, even with your earlier instruments. I think I saw them way back, closer to where you started, maybe 2016. I don't know when it was, but
yeah,
I remember
it's possible.
I was impressed with the tuning of them even back then, because think about how quickly the handpan world has evolved in the last 5 years. It's crazy. It went from handful of tuners across the world to you could buy a, not that I'd necessarily purchase one, but you could buy a $3,000 or $4,000 what people would consider an expensive handpan today. Like, they're just available everywhere, which is crazy to me.
Yeah.
But I like that there's a market that has, you know, smaller makers who are kind of doing it themselves or with few people, because that's the most interesting part of the handpan world. And that's especially why I like these conversations, because there's just something special about instruments that are made by unique people in their own sort of way. And like, that's the sound I want to look for. I don't necessarily want a sort of uniform, good, like standard quality sound. You know, I want well tuned, obviously, but has its own characteristics and its own.
Yeah, for me it's the same. Like, I acquire a lot of instruments in my life, and I also sold them because I don't use it. But I have the same, for example, with synthesizers. Like, there's a company in Pittsburgh. It's called Pittsburgh Instruments. Pittsburgh Modular Synthesizers. And when I heard their synthesizers, I was like, wow, this is something, you know, like. And because I listened to instruments and sound for more than half my life, and I love all instruments, and I was the last years was really into synthesizers. And when I heard this synthesizer, I was like, wow, this sounds like an acoustic thing more. Like, it's less. Yeah, it's really more in the front of the speakers and not behind it. I don't know how to explain. And then I had a conversation with the makers of my instruments, because I wanted to have some modifications on it. So I sent the instrument to them, and then we talked, and they had the same story as me, but about synthesizers. They had no electronic background, nothing. They just started to make crazy little objects in the beginning, and then really from passion started to make better instruments and better and bigger. And now they are, in my opinion, one of the best sounding synths in this category, but they're not so famous because it's just a small company, you know?
Right. I think, like I said, that's a sort of quirky, individualized instrument that I like. A lot of the instruments I have are just kind of like, you know, smaller makers that do something unique with the sound of their instruments. So it's the same thing with flutes and other instruments. To me, I like the idiosyncrasies of an instrument, even if it's not, you know, exactly the standard way of making it. I don't know, I just like the quirkiness of instruments.
Yeah, that's what I like about handpan festivals, when you meet the starting builders.
Yep.
And they bring their prototypes, and the prototypes, they have like different, like the fifth is not really good, so they made a fourth or whatever. And I love these things. Like I love the imperfection of these handpans, because that's been a big thing in my instruments as well. Like, am I going to perfect instruments with perfect fifths or whatever? And yeah, when you're in the process of learning and trying to make your instruments better, and you also want to impress the audience of handpan buyers, and so you struggle with that a bit. And but like, for example, there's this video of a F pentatonic instrument I made. This guy Jean, he made a video of it, and it's been viewed 10,000 times almost. And it's been a few years ago, and this instrument was far from perfect. It has a fourth in the low D, you know, you never see a fourth in a lower note, and it has thirds in the higher notes. And I get so many requests of this exact instrument. Like, I like F penta, but this exact F penta is, it does something to me.
Wow.
So then I have to replicate a prototype that I made, and I was not satisfied with it. I sold it for a cheaper price. But people are asking for this sound, and they don't know why it sounds different. But yeah, it's because of the fourth in the D and the thirds in the high notes. And yeah. So there are, like, even like the same thing about the instrument I posted last time, that harmonic minor instrument.
Yeah.
And there was a beautiful comment about a guy. He said, "I think your composition deserves a better instrument," he said.
Really?
Wow, that's cool. And then I said, like, oh, then I have to build a better one, you know. And but I wanted to make an instrument with a raw sound, old school sound, with the thirds in the high notes. But I do agree that I don't like this about the instrument and that. And I want to make another version of this, of course. And then he was like, "Oh, sorry. So you intended?" And I said, "No, don't worry. You know."
I've inspired you to do.
Yeah. It's like he's just experiencing that this is what he likes and this is what he don't like. And when he hears an instrument with thirds, he thinks it's, "No, I don't like this sound."
Right.
Yeah, it's possible. Everybody has a different taste.
Mm-hmm.
So.
What's
just
like tuning wise? I know I've had conversations with tuners that are. I think most people agree that being exactly on doesn't work. It has to be like, you have to pay attention to the note relationship as well as the tuner. So what, in your process of tuning, how are you determining what the best sound for that note is? Is it strictly by the tuner, or are you using your ears too and saying that this sounds better, you know, 5 cents sharp or flat, or what's your process for tuning?
Yeah, that depends. Like when I have to fiddle with the upper partials and change them. The reason behind that for me in this moment would be that there is some crosstalk going on, or activation going on, or and that means that I made a mistake in my shaping, or I made a mistake in making my membrane. But it goes so deep, tuning. Like especially if you find out yourself a method to do it. Like for me, it's really difficult to communicate with a builder that has all the words that are used in the forums about handpan tuning, and because there are a lot of ways of tuning, there are a lot of membrane behaviors of one note. You know, you can make it scream, which is not wished for in a lot of for a lot of people, but sometimes I like it, you know. Yeah. Like when I have an instrument that I like, it needs to scream, it needs to cry when I hit it hard. It sounds but it's expression, it's distortion.
Right.
Distortion is an expression, and I really love when my membranes of the instrument are at the edge and then they break. They need to break. Like there are a lot of instruments and builders that don't like a note to break or to wobble, or and I love that. It's like when it's like a voice, like
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting you say that too, because I was just having a conversation with somebody else recently about the initial players of the Hong and the early handpans too. They were very heavy-handed players. A lot of the people were wailing on that instrument
with the thumb.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm a thumb player too, and I'm guilty of playing too hard as well when I first started to play. And now, when you get into it too, you're not thinking like, I need to control the dynamics of my hand. If you're in the moment, I totally understand, hard striking.
Yeah.
It's funny that it shifted from like people really whacking their instruments. Even like Dante, he was a very hard player. His strikes were beautiful player, amazing player.
Yeah.
But it's funny, it shifted at some point, like 2015 or 16 or 17, where it's like, you should not be striking this hard. You should be delicately touching it. And it's...
yeah, there you go again. Yeah. I understand it for, it's an expensive instrument and you don't want to mess it up. But that's why, for me, it's okay for the player to play loud. I test my instruments to my own playing, and it can be distorted, but there are players that even play louder than my tests, and then it gets screwed up.
Yeah, but it's kind of neat to see that things have shifted that way, and then they're kind of shifting back now.
Yeah, it shifted to a more stiff membranes. Yeah, and I totally dislike this. It's because there is not a huge dynamic range to play with.
Okay.
And for an instrument to make music is also about dynamic range, and that's why I like them. To when you play soft, that you can hear soft, and if you play louder, and then it distorts at the end. Like I love that. That's the parameter of music. It's
I like that philosophy a lot. Well, you're kind of you're being aware of the range of sounds and tuning with that in mind. I appreciate that perspective.
Yeah, it's a really difficult. That is a difficult thing, but that's my wish in my instruments, and to find that border of too much of this screaming or too stiff. But I always prefer too loose than too stiff, because I when they are stiff, it's so boring. It's
right.
But yeah, I always try to find that particular edge. I love it. Yeah.
Interesting. That's really interesting. Do you find that in your sort of experiments with stainless steel, and I don't know if you've tried other types of steel too, does the material react similarly for that style of tuning, or is it more rigid in some materials versus more flexible?
Every material has its way of bringing your desires to the point that you want it to be. Like it asks for a different way of creating this membrane to my wishes. And also the nitriding process can be different per material, but it's the same material. Like we have DCO4, and then we nitride it, and then I think like this material, I want to have it less nitrided, and some DCO4 is like too soft, and then I want to nitride it a little bit harder, and or you keep a batch of softer steel for different kind of instruments, and it's more that I know about this, but customers don't know, are not so educated about this deep into the material. Right. Because like if somebody comes to me and has the same knowledge as me, then it's fun. You can say, I want an instrument with thirds in the high notes. I want screaming high notes, but the lower notes, I want to have them more stiff. And I wanted to have it in nitrided steel, but I don't want to have short sustain. And like all these things are possible, but no one will ask these questions to me when I will build an instrument for them, because it's such a deep knowledge about it that and in the beginning I talked about this a lot with the customer, but the customer's like, oh, too much, you know. It's getting too difficult. And then I stopped, and then when I noticed that like for instance Kirill Osherov, the Russian player, like with him you can discuss the whole detail on how does it need to be feel when you you touch the instrument, like the surface, and everything can be discussed with this guy. And yeah, and stainless steel is the same, like one stainless is not the other, and stainless is different than nitriding, and the temperatures you use, and that's also a thing. Like with nitrided shells, it's also like if you want to have that crisp sound, you use different temperatures. If you want to have a mellow attack touch, you use a different temperature. And yeah, I experiment because I learned it myself, the building. I didn't steal a recipe. I tried so much parameters for every material that there is coming a knowledge that you know what you're doing in the end. Like even like 50 degrees difference with this material, whatever, or you cool it with water or you don't cool it with water, will do something else. And with stainless, it's a whole different thing again, but also the same. And but yeah, it's a different material, and you have to make a few instruments, but you can't put your old knowledge into this material again and try different things. And but stainless, it's for me, I don't have this much experience with stainless, but the fun thing is that I noticed is that like there are stories or people think that stainless is more crisp than nitrided, but that depends on how you treat the stainless before you finish the instrument. Like you can make it soft, you can make it hard, it also depends on how much hammering do you do after a cooking session, or there's so much, it's endless. And this is for me a fun part, but it's difficult to share with a customer. Like, what do you want? This is here's a book, this is all the possibilities.
You make a little list that I can check off there.
Yeah. So sometimes, because people sometimes also don't know which scale they want, and then you can have like a year of a conversation with somebody, and they still don't have an instrument.
I think that to me seems like the biggest difference for people that are not coming from a traditional steel tuning background, is that they've worked a lot with the parameters of their steel and different types of steel. I think the self-discovery process allows people to understand what they're making in a different sort of way than if you were sort of like an understudy or a protege of somebody else. Not that there's anything wrong with that either.
No, of course not. It's a different approach.
It's different with the material, whether it's flutes for me or steel for you. If you've kind of gone through it yourself and tried different things, and it's a different thing to learn something from somebody else versus learn it through sort of self-discovery.
You find out things that people thought was impossible, like for example a nitrided instrument with the sustain of a stainless instrument,
Right.
Like these things are possible, but if we copy each other's recipe and don't look further and get out of the box, then because it's the mistakes that you make that will make you find new stuff, and you have to make a lot of mistakes. Believe me, I made a lot. If you start in 2012 and then are happy in 2017, that's 5 years of experimenting.
It's a lot of commitment.
Never mass producing. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, but that's the fun part. And I think when I start, I think that's the whole fun thing about handpan building itself, that it's endless. Like like for example, what I showed you, like this instrument.
Yes.
I saw a jazz drummer play a kit, and I'm a lot into drums.
Yeah.
and this guy tuned his drum kit so cool, and he played it cool, that I wanted to make an instrument, a handpan, that, oh, here you can hear the church, sorry. Reminiscent of this drum kit.
Yeah.
So in this instrument, and in the jazz, you play a ride, you know, ping, 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 ping. So there's a ride in this.
Ah. That's so cool.
And for the kick, you have a bass.
Wow.
Look, and he played 2 toms and a snare, but I don't know. I have to put something in here to be a snare, and it's gone for a moment. But just, I cannot play it right now without the snare, but that's.
Is that stainless?
Fun. Yeah, this is stainless. Yeah.
Wow.
And that's the fun part of being a builder. You can make your own crazy toys. You know, it's super cool.
Yeah. I'll have to order a strange instrument from you someday.
An experiment.
An experimental one, yes.
Yeah.
What is your, I don't know if you have an ideal sound, but if you had to choose a sound that you want for your instruments, or just for an instrument in general, what's the tonal quality that you like the most in general? Like,
yeah, I like it when the fundamental really blows air, like a speaker. You know, if it really moves. Yeah. And then it will blow air, and then you have also volume. And yeah, like the partials, the higher partials, they can be pretty prominent, but yeah, not too much. But yeah, in my idea, that's different than in someone else's. Like, where is the mellow sound or the bright sound? You know, for me, there's an idea where the middle is. Also, so you don't have a pain on your ear when you play it. And yeah, it needs to move. Like, this is also what Panhard explained in a video of them about membrane behavior and string behavior. So I really love the membrane behavior. So it's more loose, it blows the air. It's not a stiff tuned membrane. And I like a long sustain in a nitrided instrument. And sometimes, depending on the scale, I like thirds. Depending on the scale, I like fifths. And yeah, for me, the most important thing, it needs to blow air. And what we discussed, there needs to be a breaking point, that when I play loud, it breaks. In sound, it's distorted, it's expression, and but it should be in tune after playing pretty rough. So we tested a lot, and we also tested on heat. So if you put your instrument in the sun, I am sure it will be in tune still if you put it back in the shadow and it cools down. So
that's great.
Yeah, it needs to be for years. It should be good, and otherwise, if it went out of tune, I made a mistake, and it's my fault. And I have to retune it, or somebody else really dropped it or did something stupid with it. But yeah, we try our best to have this sound and to have the tuning as long as possible. And I think we're doing great, because in the years I'm building, there have been a few people came back for a retuning. And so I'm really surprised. And also when I see the customers and play their instrument I made for them, I'm really surprised. Like, whoa, it's still in tune, you know. And the trick for this, I think in my building method, is that in the last stage of tuning, like the fine tuning, there's only a little hammer hits in at least the least hammer hits as possible. It needs to be in the perfect tune. Okay. And if I did it too much, I already screwed up the instrument. Like, if I'm really, up, down, then I already screwed my sound. Also because the timbre of the material changes, like because you cook it and it will get this timbre. And when I hammer it too much, it will lose it. And there's one instrument on my YouTube channel that is like it skipped one cooking process, and there you can hear the difference in the timbre. It's a Romanian Hias instrument with circles in the brass, so it's really clear.
Yeah.
And I don't like that timbre of this mist cooking.
Interesting.
Yeah.
There's so many parameters to it. I find the process so interesting.
Yeah, it's the fun thing is putting them to the max.
Yeah.
And that's why I was not happy for 5 years. And
well, I even playing this instrument for, I've had it like a year now, I think. But it feels very solid, which I like. I like that feeling that I'm not. Yeah. There's some instruments you play and you feel like you need to be very delicate with,
cautious.
Like you can't express yourself on them. But that's what I like about that particular scale.
But this instrument that you have is it's a different material, and this one is nitrided by IASA. This is the first time we let them nitride because we moved to Austria.
Yeah.
And we needed shells, and normally in the Netherlands I can pick up the shells from them. And then
so yes, you were saying that particular instrument was from IASA shells, but you're usually using a local material.
No. We use IASA shells or shallow punch shells, but the last years IASA, but we do our own nitriding.
Okay.
But with these shells, IASA did the nitriding, and for also like what's his name? I always call the builders by the builder's name, Solshine Instruments.
Yes.
I was Quinn. What's his name? He FOMO'd me into this material. He said like because it can go quick with the material of IASA, and he said like this material is really nice, and you should get it. And so I FOMO'd in this nitrided prepared material, and I'm still thankful for him to FOMO me in this material because it has some really great aspects, and I'm finding out what I like about it and what not. Like I have the idea I like this kind of material more for higher instruments than lower instruments, but now I'm experimenting, like what I said, maybe I have to use different temperatures for lower instruments on this material.
Yeah.
But it's sturdy, it's good sturdy material.
I really like it a lot, and I think it recorded very well on the album too. So
okay, nice. Yeah.
So what links, or how do people find your work? I know you have a website.
Handpan.As.
I wonder if that's probably.
Yes. I claimed it. And linked it. Handpan.As, people.
That's hilarious.
And otherwise it's Godan.nl. Godan. The Americans say Godan.
Yes. Sorry. Yes. Godan.
I had an American customer. His name was Dan, and he was happy he had a Godan.
Oh, that's funny. There's a brand of guitars here.
Godan. Yeah, Godan.
Yes, Godan.
Yeah. I found out. Somebody said, what's his name? I'm forgetting all the names. I've been speaking too much. I'm not used to talk a lot. I'm here in the back country of Austria. Don't see people.
It was an interesting conversation there, so I definitely appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks.
Absolutely.
Thank you for inviting, and it's fun to have somebody willing to hear all the details, because it's a big book of details and story, and
the more I learn about it, the more interested I am in learning more. It just
because you've been speaking to many builders, of course, and then you are ready for crazy details.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
have we talked about dimple size and dimple depth already?
Yeah.
Because that also makes a difference.
Yeah, I think it's good for people to, even if people are just kind of getting into the handpan world, to hear what goes into that and how much thought and how much experimentation goes into creating them, because it's such a unique process creatively, I think, and it's so unique to every builder that I hope that people can have respect for the amount of time and creativity that goes into making stuff. So.
Yeah. For me, I'm really looking forward to the future, and because like a wooden box with strings, how old is this?
Mm-hmm.
And like, yeah, and tuned steel like this, in this method, like tuned steel is here for like cymbals are here for 600 years already, I heard.
Wow.
Like, but like 1 millimeter or 1.2 millimeter thick steel, a whole scale, or tuned steel like this, where you have control over partials, thirds, fifths, the octave could change, and like this. I think in the future, if I have enough money, I will make some crazy instruments that involve tuned steel. And I've designed, when I was studying sound design, I made a lot of crazy designs, and I tested also designs combining things and making tuned steel like this, have infinite sustain, for example, methods to find this. And when I have the time, space, money, motivation enough, there are a lot of things to explore still in this only 70-year-old method of tune. So
I look forward
exciting
to seeing your explorations of it. So
it's I'm a little bit burned out about experimentations, because I'm really, since I live here now for a while, I'm taking a break a bit of it. That's why you also see less videos. But I went in deep in handpan building, and it took all my energy, and I also had back problems. But I fixed this, and also because I'm a better tuner now, I have to work less hard to get there. And now we have a shaper for the standard instruments, Benji. He's helping us out here in Austria. He had a whole workshop for building handpans, but he quit. And I said, but maybe you would like to help, because there's some things I don't like to do anymore in handpan building, especially for the simple commercial, how do you call it, consumers instruments. It's hard labor, and of
course
I'd rather do only the customs and the crazy shit.
Yeah. Oh, that's nice.
So we have help. Yeah, and my girlfriend, she helps a lot.
Good.
She does all the dimpling, so your instrument is dimpled by my girlfriend. Yeah,
I love that.
She's a super talented musician, and together we are here in Austria in the village making these instruments and making music. And I hope that this shitty Corona stuff is stopping soon, so we can invite people to our house and handpan enthusiasts and record, because I would love to have people record their albums here also in the studio. And
good. Sounds wonderful. Let's hope it happens soon.
Of course it happens.
Yeah, it will happen. It will happen soon.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you guys for listening to our talk. Definitely check out his website, and also I have videos of the instrument he made for me.
Handpanporn.com.
Yes. All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you guys so much for joining Jesse and I for this conversation. I found it unbelievably fascinating to hear about how he got into the instrument and how he continues to evolve and grow and improve as a maker. I do have one of his instruments already, and I love it. It's an absolutely fantastic instrument. And you can tell just from his ability to talk about such minutia of the process that, his self-discovery process was useful for him. And that's kind of the thing. When you learn something by yourself, you understand it in a different way than if it's passed on through a lineage or through a tradition. So good job, Jesse, and I hope you guys enjoyed, and I look forward to talking to you next time. Stay well, my friends.